rough start to the road trip. A rough start to the road trip for the Celtics, and another night of generating decent looks and just missing them all. Plus, we're going to decide what each Celtics player's New Year's resolutions should be next on First to the Floor.
Who was going to be first to the floor here? And it was Marcus Smart, as he usually is.
Brown drives. That's not the first time we've seen a superstar in green and white sacrifice the body. Garnett knocked away.
Hey, welcome into another episode of First to the Floor. Ben Vallis here. Thank you for joining us. Hope you're doing well. Joining me on this one, Wayne Spoony. Spoons, Happy New Year, man. How you doing?
Happy New Year. Yeah, Ben, I'm feeling a little bit like that rim from last night. You know, my kids in the last week and a half been in daycare for 2 days. We've had family in and out. I drank a little too much, ate a little bit too much. So, you know, I as crazy as it sounds, I'm kind of looking forward to getting back to a little bit of normalcy. How about you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look at the glitchy start to the live stream there, which hopefully we'll edit out for the Celtics blog feed listeners. Yeah, this is my first day back at work. So I think for me, just getting back into the swing of things, actually having time to watch games more consistently and focus on, you know, the analytical aspects of it and producing more content for our YouTube channel. So it was a great little break there, Christmas and New Year's, but I'm happy to get back to it. Now, look, 123, 111, the final score in the Celtics loss to those pesky Denver Nuggets, who now are the holders of the coveted Denver Cup. We're not going to spend too much time talking about the game. The Green with Envy podcast, they released a pod on this feed yesterday, right after the game. So once you're done here, check out that pod if you haven't already. That said, Spoony, what were your main takeaways from this one?
You know, I think a lot of times when you lose, or not a lot of times with this team, but that recent 5 losses out of 6 games skid, especially those first couple losses, there was real reason to be somewhat alarmed with the way the team was playing, settling for bad shots, not moving themselves, not moving the ball quickly, playing slow. The defense, I thought, has looked good. I think we were second in defensive rating for the month of December, so I had no concerns with the defense, but the offense really skidded to a halt. I don't feel that way about that Nuggets game last night. I thought the ball was moving. They were getting open shots. I thought Tatum missed, I think, 3 straight threes to start the game. And then he was like, all right, I'm not doing that anymore. And he was relentlessly attacking people, going hard to the rack. And Jalen probably was the only guy you could say who had a great game last night. So honestly, it's boring to say, but that game was straight up just shooting variance. Like, Denver did not miss. And we're airballing wide open 3. Like, Malcolm Brogdon airballed, what, 2 threes or something like that? And he's like 46% on the year.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was, I think Jaylen Brown referred to it in his post-game interview as an anomaly, referring to the Nuggets shooting 57% from 3. And maybe you could say, like, if we really want to dive into it, Spoonie, like, the Celtics are somewhat to blame for at least setting the table for that shooting performance in their aggressive double teaming of Jokic and giving guys like Bruce Brown, like, not typically good 3-point shooters. Obviously, that's part of the game plan to give up those shots. But Scal said it maybe 50 times on the broadcast. You give that guy a couple of open looks early in the game, suddenly he's knocking all of his shots down. He was 4 for 4, I guess, in the first, 3 quarters, end of the game, 4 for 6 overall. And we just saw the ball, fizzing around there on the perimeter. The Nuggets working the ball around off of those double teams on Jokic and finding really good open looks and allowing those guys to get going. Then we go away from the double team to address that. Jokic gets going, unstoppable one-on-one in the post, whether it's Batman, Grant Williams were throwing at him, Al Horford, who amazingly can stop guys like Giannis and Joel Embiid. Completely ineffective when it comes to defending Jokic in the post as well, which just, is to sing the praises of Jokic and how effective he is in all facets, particularly offensively. I just feel like we opened it up for them early, Spoons, and once we applied a counter move, that was it, and they had run away with it at that point early on.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree. I think there absolutely was some of that, and that's something I always kind of preach. That's one of the things I always go back to is you want to get your role players involved early, get them feeling comfortable, but they shot like 70% from 3. You know what I mean? That is in a game we lost by 11, 12. So I think Jalen's right. It was an anomaly. Jokic obviously had a monster game, 30, 12, and 12, but he only took 13 shots. So I do think we did a pretty decent job of limiting him, just completely destroying us. I don't know. It's tough. It's weird to say that about a guy who had 30, but he went 10 of 13. You got to think he made 2 for 2 from 3, like a couple of those rainbow threes, like one of those doesn't drop and all of a sudden he's at 27, and that's a rebound and it goes the other way. Basketball's a game of runs. It just felt like every time we clawed back by going hard to the rim, getting fouled, making tough layups, or pushing the pace, we did a really good job of pushing the pace, getting out in fast breaks. It was like Bruce Brown hits a 3, Michael Porter Jr. hits a 3, Jokic hits a 3, and it's like, man, I know that, the doubling, if you're going to take anything away from this game, I think you probably need to question what Joe Mazzulla's game plan was against Jokic, because doubling him, you just can't. You just got to live with him. Like, Jokic doesn't want to take 25 shots, right? He's not a Tatum or a Brown or a Luka. Like, he wants to take 13 shots and impact the game with his passing, and you're inviting him to do that by sending the doubles early and often. And, like, it doesn't matter where you double from. It doesn't matter how you double. It doesn't matter how you mix it up. It works against Embiid. We do such a good job with it against Giannis. You can't do it against you. You just can't. He will find the open cutter or the open shooter every single time. And you play into his hands when you throw doubles at him. I thought we did a better job. Grant got cooked a couple times, but I do think he bumped him off his spot and did a pretty good job. Grant should have started. And I think Joe realized his mistake and started him in the second half.
Shout out to the coaching intern in the pregame chat with Mazzulla, squeaky voice in the back of the room. Hey, maybe we shouldn't double Jokic, and just being completely shut down. I dare say that won't be the game plan next time around. But absolutely, a real the Celtics really contributing to the what not to do against Jokic reel of film that now exists out there in the world. They did have a couple of other good performances. Bones Highland had some big moments. Again, Scout on the broadcast described him as a roller coaster, probably more roller coastery than our experience with a young Marcus Smart. But he did have some big moments in this game. And
he hit some shots that were just like, come on, man, we're not winning this game.
Yeah, exactly. He had one highly contested or heavily contested sort of fall away 3 where I think the Celtics had cut it to 5 at one point, and it was like, okay, here we go. We found ourselves third quarter, as our mate Joe always says, games are won and lost in the third quarter. It was looking like we were sort of beginning to pick up that rope and reel ourselves back in, and then Bones Highland, another one I think where he dribbled himself into traffic in the paint, picked up his dribble, was just completely lost and just overshadowed by Celtic defenders, and then somehow finished with this like left-handed push shot.
The lefty push shot over 2 people. It's like, oh man, this is not going well, is it? Damn.
So we're officially just marking it down as just one of those nights where it's not so much us not having it, the Nuggets just having everything, and really laying the smackdown on the Celtics, the same method that the Celtics have been laying down on all of their opponents, especially for the earlier parts of this season. Do you think there's anything to say? There were some tweets in the Twitterverse out there. I think I saw Danger Cart with one about the lackluster defense from the Celtics. Do you think they could have done better from an effort standpoint defensively?
I think, man, it's tough to play in Denver. I think it's a little different if you play a series against them and you can get used to the altitude. But I mean, it is a difference when you're popping over there for one night. I'm sure some of these guys went out on New Year's Eve, like, they're young dudes. I did not. I was asleep by 10, but, the 24-year-olds on this team, 25-year-olds. And then you got to play Denver, and like Jokic is tough to play against from, again, an effort standpoint, because he finds the open guy and you got to scramble, but also he just beats you up on post ups and his drives. Like, he doesn't get by anyone. He just gets into you, through you, and kind of floats it over your head. So, I don't know, man. I'm not too worried about the effort stuff with this one. It's game 40 or whatever of a long season in the elevation against Denver. It happens.
I initially thought Jokic, maybe a bit of a party boy with his beers and his horses back home in Serbia during the offseason, that would be to our advantage, that he would certainly be out, knowing that he had a home game the next day, out on the town in Denver, if there is such a thing, inhaling a few beers and maybe not necessarily taking the following morning's game or morning in Australian time, the following night's game seriously. Turns out his beer tolerance actually was a huge advantage to him.
That's it, yeah.
I'm sure that he went out and got effed up the night before, but as a experienced beer drinker, it was not an issue. Marcus Smart, on the other hand, maybe more of a my body is a temple kind of guy.
Yes.
Maybe inhaled a few the night before, and not just beers, who knows. And he was particularly lackluster, I thought, 2 of 12 from the field. And 12 is just a little too many field goal attempts for Marcus Smart. I think, although you could probably attribute that to him just trying to give the game what it needed at a point where no shots were falling at all. But, defensively, offensively, really all areas of the game, I thought that he was a step slow everywhere. And, part of this recent stretch of success for the Celtics obviously has been very J-driven, but Marcus Smart, as we know, is always setting the table for not only those guys, but our role players as well and getting them going. And he just wasn't doing that tonight. And without that, we're going to fail.
Yeah, and Smart probably could have had a double-digit assists if we had a normal shooting night as well. But I thought, to that point, though, Ben, he had one double where he timed it absolutely perfect, right as Jokic was picking up his dribble. And how many times have we seen him time that double perfect, swipe down on the ball, and it's a fast break the other way? And he just whacked Jokic's arm, and it's like, man, like, he's just off tonight. Like, Smart never misses the ball in that situation, and he did, and it was a foul, and Smart was like, yeah, I got him. So, I think you're right. That was just kind of a weird game from Smart, sort of a little too many, just couldn't find the balance between the shot pass, and Jokic is tough for, he can handle just about any center in the league in the post other than Embiid and Jokic. And, well, he had Jokic tonight, and Jokic got him a few times.
Too many VBs the night before.
Yeah, that's right.
And I found myself thinking during halftime, I wish the Celtics could get me in as a consultant in the halftime locker room situation, as a hangover cure consultant, because, I've been out. I'm obviously an older gentleman now, but in my younger years here in Australia, New Year's Eve, big drinking culture. And then part of it is, if you're working the next day in particular, is making sure that you're taking care of that hangover cure, preventing what could be a sweaty, shaky morning the following day. Spoonie, what would your hangover cure advice have been to the Celtics had they called you up and cited your expertise?
Okay, lots of people say go with the huge breakfast the next morning or whatever, all the greasy stuff. That always makes me just feel worse. Mm-hmm. So I like to keep it light, but your body, right? When you drink alcohol, your blood sugar rises and then it drops hard. So you need some sugar, you need some protein, you need some fat. You got to get the balanced diet. Yeah. Greek yogurt, if you can stomach it, which I can, because it's like my favorite food. Yeah, I know, I'm a psycho. But like a Greek yogurt, cup of coffee, like not too strong, nothing crazy. Maybe like a dash of milk in there. Mm-hmm. And, like a big old Gatorade or something like that. That's my go-to hangover cure, Ben. Do you have a magic cure?
I think,
like take a cold bath.
Well, my hangover cure is living in Sydney is get in the ocean, swim in the ocean,
that helps.
Wade out there and let a huge wave crash over your face, allow yourself to fall backwards into the ocean and for the wave to roll over your head. And it's a baptism of sorts. When you emerge from the ocean, you're cured. Obviously in Denver, in the Mile High City, not an option. The Celtics, all NBA teams, very resourceful. Get a glass fishbowl type canister of ocean water, helicoptered to the stadium. Everyone takes a turn of plunging. Other than that, a bacon and egg roll, I think, is an excellent, not only pre-game meal, but a hangover cure, and just electrolytes and sleep. And we're getting more into the preventative measures now rather than the cures, but really prevention is the key there. Anyway, this is a huge area of expertise for me. I could go
when you get to 35, Ben, there are no more cures. When I was 25, I could eat and be ready to go at like 2 p.m. the next day. Now it's like 2 days and I'm still hurting, Yeah,
the ultimate cure is just don't drink at all.
Yes.
Speaking of head in the clouds situations, Malcolm Brogdon, we talk about, thank you, this game being an anomaly, particularly with the shooting for the Nuggets. What isn't an anomaly is Malcolm Brogdon's recent stretch. What are you seeing there from Brogger, which is a nickname I've just put on him out of nowhere? What are you seeing from him in terms of this little slump that he's in?
First of all, that's a very Australian, New Zealand type of nickname, Brogger, mate. So since he's come back from the hamstring injury, it just seems like, one, his finishing at the rim has really been bad. And two, he can't get by anybody. And I think those two things are really related. So I don't know if that's nagging him or he's just having trouble getting back into game shape or what it is, but Malcolm Brogdon, I mean, he's always top 5 in drives every single season when he was a starter playing big minutes. That is his game, getting downhill, getting to the rim, getting fouled, finishing at the rim. And then once he draws a lot of attention, then he finds shooters, because I do not think he's a natural playmaker. In fact, I think he's missed Rob on lobs over a handful of times.
For sure.
A couple times last night, at least. I bet there's 10 or 12 since Rob's come back that he's missed them on. And it's like, you might as well not have Rob out there with him if he's not going to find him for the lob, because that is like the biggest value Rob brings on the offensive side of the ball. So he either needs to sit and get healthy, or, he just needs to get back to playing his game, because he's been propped up by hot shooting for like a month now.
Mm-hmm.
And when that goes away, like you saw last night, man, he looks a lot worse than Derek White. I don't know right now, even though White's not been great either.
Would you, if you were Joe Mazzulla running the game back, would you have inserted Peyton Pritchard in the second half instead of Malcolm Brogdon based on how he was playing?
So I saw you tweeted that game was basically begging for Peyton Pritchard, and I was like logging on Twitter to tweet something similar, and I was like, all right, Ben already covered it, because and Danger Cart said it right, lack of effort. We were talking about high altitude. Like, sometimes you just need an injection, a spark plug, and your team is struggling with energy and shooting. Well, what are the two things Peyton Pritchard brings in spades, right? He's going to come out and play hard as hell, and he can shoot the ball. So I was with you, Ben. I thought Peyton Pritchard should have played. I would have put him in the first half, when we're like, the second Brogdon airballs a three and then turns it over and misses a lob. It's like, maybe I'll try something a little different here. I don't know. Play him with Brogdon. They can play together. There's no reason they can't. And if you get him out there when Jokic sits for long periods of time, there's nobody on the Nuggets that can hurt Peyton Pritchard on offense other than Jokic consistently. So, yeah, I think this was not Joe's best game. He's coming back from an eye injury. So give players a few games. Yeah, he's a little rusty on the adjustments. This is not a great game from Joe, and I would have loved to see Peyton.
Yeah, agreed. And ideally, as that Brogdon airball goes up and the camera starts to pan back to the left, you want to see a little Peyton Pritchard getting up and walking to the scorer's table. That's what we all wanted to see. And that's the argument for keeping Peyton Pritchard and not including him in some sort of trade package, is that health is going to be a question, particularly for Malcolm Brogdon, but potentially Smart with the way that he plays, sort of that balls to the wall style. Derek White as well, potentially. And even if not, you need a backup for a healthy Derek White while the other two are injured.
Right.
Either way, that's the argument for keeping Peyton Pritchard. And if health is a concern, and it looks like potentially it is for Brogdon, we should be seeing ideally more of Peyton Pritchard. Unfortunately, that's not the case. I wonder how long Joe sort of holds on to that, because obviously for a lot of coaches, there's a sense of like wanting to show confidence and trust in a guy, because that's part of lifting them out of a funk.
Yeah.
But if it's a physical issue, the hamstring, like you mentioned, time to see a little bit more a PP insertion, if you will.
I will, unfortunately.
There was some good from the game, other than just like, ticking it off as an anomaly and moving on. Jaylen Brown, 30 points, 60% from the floor, 0 turnovers, and really just the major point of attack and aggression for the Celtics. You see anything new from Jaylen from this one? Any new takeaways about Jaylen's game out of this one?
Not really. Denver's a bad defensive team. They don't really force a ton of turnovers. That's exactly the type of team I expect Jaylen Brown to feast against. He's had a couple horrid threes he's put up the last few games, and I think he had 1 or 2 last night where he's got it cooking and he pulls up from like 30, and it's just like, they can't stay in front of you, Jaylen. Like, you can get like any shot you want against these guys. Don't settle. Don't bail this team out. So, but I think that probably goes back to playing up in the altitude and just being a little tired and a little sluggish. It's hard to go to the rim and get hacked all game long. And otherwise, though, I don't think I really saw anything new from him. Did you, Ben?
No, and this is where the likeness to T-Mac becomes tiresome, because T-Mac didn't win anything. He was awesome. He was fun, very dynamic player, and maybe, had obviously a propensity for those pull-ups, and probably, I don't know the stats in front of it, but maybe hit them at a higher clip. And like you said, in a game like this where the defense don't have anything to throw at a guy like Jaylen Brown, he needs to be a little bit more aggressive. But all in all, it was probably a bright spot in an otherwise dark game. Have not checked my fantasy leagues Slack notifications at all, I'm sure there are some very aggressive taunts from my mate Dice sitting there waiting for me, and I just refuse to check them.
They hadn't beat us in like 6 games. Like how much taunting can you really do?
Recency bias is a thing, I suppose, particularly
fair.
when it's taunting between mates. So finally, before we move on, Rob Williams, who is questionable for the OKC game due to knee soreness management, I think is the official classification there. I thought he was great again in this one, 18 minutes, 4-of-4 shooting, and just the defensive tone shift when he comes into the game. Like, we're not offering any new information here, Spoonie, but it's just clear and I suppose comforting to see so soon after his return that he's able to offer so much off the bench.
Yeah, he had like a nice little back to the basket move when he had a little on him for his first bucket. I was like, ooh, that combined with, I think it was last game or the game before I think it was the Clippers game. He had like he was above the break or around the 3-point line. And he like took Paul George to the rim and got fouled. And it's like, is this a little something extra Rob has added to his game? Because it's exactly the type of thing he needs. If he gets like a Bam style handle like that, he's going to be a problem. He's going to be an all-star. You know what I mean? So Rob hasn't missed a shot in 3 games. And you're right. Defensively, he's like once in a while he chases a dumb block and he almost hurts himself, which always terrifies me. But I'm with you. I think he's like fantastic. I think he maybe has added a little something to his game, or he's just playing with more confidence and trying stuff. So you got to feel good about the way Rob's come back. And I can't wait till he starts playing 30-35 minutes a game because we're just a different team.
Yeah, absolutely. Still very clearly in that injury management portion of the comeback, given that he's questionable for tomorrow's game. And certainly is at the juncture within his career where he might start to, he's established himself as this sort of rim-running defensive center, lob threat, and now is at the point where it can start to add, counter moves and post moves and stuff like that. So maybe in this early stage of this comeback, we're starting to see that. I think there's been a lot of curiosity online, a lot of appetite for this kind of information of what the last year's lineup of death looks like this year. So per Cleaning the Glass, and if you're watching on YouTube, we've got the stats up here on screen. In 29 possessions so far since Rob's return, so small sample size, this is the lineup of the Jays, Smart, Horford, Rob Williams, a point differential of 0. So if you look over here on the right, again, if you're watching on YouTube, they're in the top 96th percentile defensively in terms of points per possession at 106.9, but also allowing exactly that offensively as well. So defensively, I'd say it's a little bit more like riding a bike, a little bit more intuitive in terms of picking that back up and everyone knowing their place on the court and their defensive role. Offensively, a lot of rust there. Spoonie, any thoughts, particularly offensively, and how this lineup hasn't managed to really find themselves yet?
I'm not too worried about it. I think Rob's comeback also is really at the same time we're in a pretty bad shooting slump, especially I feel like Al he hit a couple tonight and a couple of the last few games, but he had been ice cold. Smart's been kind of cold. So I think it's probably just a little bit of shooting luck. 29 possessions, a very small sample size. They blow the doors off some team in 12 minutes next game, all of a sudden that's going to look really a lot different. So not too worried about it. I think the defensive signs are really good because that's the lineup where we buttered our defensive bread to make a horrid metaphor last year. So it's a good sign. Also, if you notice, the offensive rebounding percentage of that lineup's at 30%. Which is a pretty ridiculously high number. And we had been, I think, the worst offensive rebounding team in the league before Rob got back. And now we're climbing up that list very quickly, basically just because of Rob Williams and how insane he is on the offensive glass.
So good to have him back. Now, we're going to move on to, I suppose, the meat of this podcast. Again, if you want more of a deep dive into that Nuggets game, go and listen to the Green with Envy pod. It'll be the pod on the Celtics blog feed before this one that you're listening to now. We're going to get into New Year's resolutions for each of the Celtics players, and this is inspired by a Celtics blog article by Daniel Porch. I suppose the caveat that we should add is that the Celtics are still number 1 in net rating in the league, despite the disappointing loss yesterday and a few disappointing games as of late. As well, they've got the 7th best defense and still to date the league's best offense as well. And they're really high in turnover percentage and assist to turnover ratio, and they're still very, very good. Despite that, we are going to nitpick a little bit, and some of these resolutions could be positive, things to keep doing, I suppose, Spoonie. And we're going to work in reverse order. before we get started, anything you want to add to sort of set the table for this segment, Spoons?
No, let's get into it, man.
Justin Jackson, I'll start. Be prepared to relinquish your roster spot in the new year, Justin Jackson, because the buyout market, could be particularly spicy, and these guys that get bought out, and they do have some freedom of choice as far as where they want to go. And the Celtics are very much in that tier of like veterans signing there on team-friendly deals in order to try and win a ring before the end of their career. So I think Justin Jackson's going to be the first to go. I know that he's going to be the first to go in that particular instance.
Your resolution is he should start looking for apartments in Portland.
Or China, maybe.
yeah. My resolution for Justin Jackson: stop doing dumb stuff in garbage time. Because if you're an end of a bench guy, the only time you have a chance to show other teams in the league you have NBA skills, and your current team you have NBA skills, is during garbage time. And it seems like he makes one or two completely boneheaded plays in garbage time. It's like, dude, if you're going to do that in 2.5 minutes when you're playing against the other team's end of the bench, like, we can't trust you for 10 minutes a night. And that's really where his role is going to be for in the league. So stop doing dumb stuff in garbage time.
Yep. Or be prepared to relinquish your roster spot.
That's probably more likely.
Luke Cornett, Spoons, you want to get us started on this one?
Yeah, be more aggressive when you get the ball. I feel like Luke, he'll catch it even fairly near the hoop, and he doesn't even look at the rim ever. And he used to. This was Daniel in his post on Celtics blog. He said, "See if the 3-point shot is back." And yeah, that kind of goes to what I'm saying is like, be more aggressive. I'm not saying go out there and start gunning, Luke, but you got to at least kind of be a threat on offense. So look to dunk. See if you got a little baby hook there or something like that. And don't always just look for the handoff every single time you touch the ball.
Yeah, good call. I went in a completely different direction.
Love
I put
it.
Be more of a celebration innovator in the peak of the Celtics' powers there.
Yes.
We saw a lot of all of the Celtics firing on all cylinders in the various, strengths and facets of their game. I'm talking the Cornish game hen. I'm talking the many awesome Luke Cornett celebrations we saw at that time. And since then, there's been a huge drop-off in innovative celebrations. I'd like to see Luke Cornett pick that back up in the new year and make it a part of who he is on the Celtics.
Yeah, I'm with you. That's Z Gamer with a great comment. The green cornet is selfless to a fault, a common weakness of most superheroes. Yes, that's exactly right.
Love it. I'm going to start us off with Blake Griffin. Really, I just want to see more of this.
Green gets one from White. Now he gives to White. Trolls to the Blake Griffin
Throw it up.
That's it. That's all I got for Blake Griffin. I'm
Yeah,
a simple man with simple needs.
Blake, please bust out a windmill for Ben. It's all he texts in our group text about. Please bust out a windmill for Ben. That's all I got.
I'm becoming quite one-dimensional as a person.
Yes.
That's all I ever ask for nowadays. Noah Vonleh, Spoonie. What are your wishes and New Year's resolution hopes for Noah Vonleh?
Stop the dumb fouls. Just stop set your feet on picks. Don't reach in. Keep your hands straight up. If a guy makes a shot over you, he makes a shot over you. Stop with the leaning on top of guys and trying to block their shots. You're just not. Just keep your hands straight. Stop the dumb fouls.
Yeah, I had the same thing.
Nice. All right.
Competitive fouling. Stop being a competitive foul. That's not the way to sort of stamp your mark on the game. There's other ways to contribute to a basketball game, namely scoring, rebounding, defending. Fouling, not one of those
Not
things.
fouling.
Yeah, exactly. Danilo Gallinari.
Let's go ahead.
Okay, so I put embrace reality as a trade asset, which I think is potentially in his near future. What do you got for Gallo there?
We haven't heard any chatter, and I would feel so bad about trading Gallo with all the posts he makes. He clearly loves the Celtics and keeps posting him in his jersey and shooting jumpers. So I was gonna say try and get healthy, by April, so you can work yourself into even a small playoff role.
Yeah, I'd be happy with either. It's just we want to see the championship window, is tragically narrow for all teams, even ones that look like they'll be dynastic in the near future. And just we need to just do with Gallo whatever's going to help the team now. And if he can come back healthy-ish for the playoffs, great. Otherwise, let's flip him for someone who can contribute in the postseason. Peyton Pritchard, what do you got, Spoonie?
Get better at lob passes.
Oh, okay.
I feel like he almost never throws lobs. He plays with Cornette. He's going to be playing with Rob when he plays. Like, start looking for lobs because it'll add an entirely different dimension to his game. I feel like he can get into the paint, but when he gets there, he often can't get a shot off. Well, you can throw it 15 feet in the air and Rob Williams will jump and get it. So if you get better at timing those lob passes, get more accurate with them, figure out how to get them off when you're only 6'1". So that would be my thing for Pritchard.
I put acceptance of the importance of his role, and which is clearly quite boring for him. He's obviously getting, hopefully, a lot of run in practice and in warm-ups, and then not a lot of run in even a game like the Denver game yesterday, where we clearly needed that PP insertion. But it is an important role, and it's important because when guys like Brogdon or White or whoever are injured, or everything we already discussed in that dynamic, but we need a backup in that sense. And it's boring to play that role, I get it, but in a team that's looking to win a title, it's kind of essential. So,
yeah.
Who am I to ask Peyton Pritchard to have that level of acceptance for that in his career? But that's kind of what we need him to do. So we just kind of need him to accept it for the sake of the dynamic of the team and the roster overall.
Yeah, it's really hard to do, too. It's a really difficult role. But, yeah, I think you're spot on there.
Sam Hauser?
Learn what to do after a pump fake.
Oh, okay.
Because he pump fakes and guys fly by him. And then he often will be like, do I shoot? I guess I'll try to drive. He's had one or two nice little reverse layups after a pump fake, but like, just get more confident. Once you pump fake the guy, he flies by you. If you have confidence and you know what you can do with the ball, whether it's Grant learned the relocation 3 where he pump fakes, takes one dribble, resets, and fires, learn that. Learn something because guys are going to fly at you, and they already are, and he's still shooting the ball, and it's not going in because he's getting these crazy hard contests. So if he can start punishing that, I think his shot will come back. Learn what to do after a pump fake, Sam.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And it might, if you did make that adjustment, contribute to what Daniel had in his article and what I have in my notes here as well, which is just conquer the slump. Like, find your shot again and learn how to shoot under even just a sprinkle of duress, because that early stretch of the season, there was none of that. Defense was
wide open.
Yeah, magnetized towards the Jays. And now they've learnt about house money and the house party and all the various other Hauser puns, and they're defending him. So he needs to learn how to adjust to that. Malcolm Brogdon, I've put tighten the handle and then reconnect with the team as well. There might be a bit of a health cloud hovering over him, like we talked about Spoonie, so maybe there's less validity to these, but his handle is loose, and I've almost seen him like dribble into the paint with his head down a little bit as well. I don't feel like he's necessarily aware of his surroundings, which is so strange to say about him, because like the description of Malcolm Brogdon when he came to the team and previously in his career is like this really heady guy who just like knows ball and understands how to conduct that orchestra, and we just haven't seen that since that pre-hamstring injury stretch. So that, and reconnect with the team as far as like learning how to play with guys like Rob Williams, who he said he missed a couple of lob attempts to. We need that development from Brogdon's side in the new year.
Yeah, we're on the same wavelength here. I was going to say look to pass more when you drive, but did I not? I said it when we first got him. I was like, Brogdon is not a natural. He is a scorer first and second. He is just not a natural passer, man. And with the weapons on this team and the crowds he can draw when he drives, like, man, pick your head up, pass the ball. But yeah, as Z-Gamer saying it, he needs to finish better. He absolutely needs to finish better. He's missed some absolute bunnies in the last month or so.
Totally. Grant Williams, I've put re-simplify your game with quick decisions. So, we talked about the adjustments that he's added to his game and the counter moves. I'd just like to see him get into that move much more quickly. I feel like he's putting the defense back into an advantageous position by being a little slow in deciding what he's going to do off the catch. And I think that's the natural progression in any game. You add these counter moves and then you just become more efficient in executing them. And we're just sort of at the beginning of that slope for Grant Williams.
Yeah, that same kind of idea, I would say, is shoot with a light contest more. It's like any contest, he pump fakes. Like, dude, in the playoffs, you're going to have to let it fly with light contests. Like, these guys are not closing out on you. They're not flying at you anymore because you've showed you can pump fake and get to the rim or make a play. Like, let it fly. Like, he's clearly not comfortable when there's a guy near him. Well, the only way you're going to get comfortable is to shoot that shot. So let it fly with even a lightish contest.
Totally. I'd put Grant in like the top of my confidence rating as far as all of these little nitpicky asks that we're bestowing on these guys in the new year. I'd say I'm most confident that Grant Williams can make that adjustment just because he's clearly such an intelligent guy who's capable of growing his game.
He's clearly a super hard worker too. I think that's probably why the Jays, as much as they kind of little brother him, seem to really like Grant, gravitate towards Grant. I can see that Grant is going to bust his ass and become a better player during the season and the off season. So yeah, I'm with you. I fully expect Grant to have a great second half.
Derek White, know that your aggressiveness is an essential part of this team's success. Tatum, I think, called him out recently. Not called him out, but just sort of attributed that in a recent post-game interview where we saw it in stretches of the game yesterday against Denver where when Derek's out there pushing the pace, either in transition out of makes or off misses and just like immediately penetrating and either finishing, he's drawing a lot of contact and getting to the free throw line or making the right pass, once the defense collapses on him, once he gets into the paint there. When he's really aggressive and really pushes the ball like that, it feels like that's the best version of this team, but he's not always doing that. And obviously there are variables there like fatigue and, Joe and the team calling other offensive sets and formats. But for the most part, when Derek White is pushing the ball in transition, this team is the best that they can be.
Same thing. Stay aggressive. Keep being aggressive every single game, every possession, every time you're in.
What have you got for Rob Williams?
Just don't hurt yourself.
Yes.
That's it. Don't hurt yourself, Rob.
Yeah.
You're perfect.
Yeah, you are almost perfect. I would say, and we're really getting into the nitpicky side of this, but exploit post mismatches. We saw him do it yesterday. You mentioned the move on Paul George as well. I think he got Bones Highland, or it might have been Bruce Brown, but someone way smaller than him in the Denver game. But all right, let's keep pulling the thread on that one because that's particularly exciting. Al Horford, what do you think, Spoons?
Just take care of your body.
Be 5 years younger.
Yeah, be 5 years younger. It's difficult. Trust me. Al, I really think just be open to playing less minutes, and that's not really something he can control. But I'd like to see Al. He's really played a lot of minutes already this year. I'd like to see him downshift now that Rob's getting back healthy to the mid 20s. Because anytime he cracks 30, it just scares me.
I put embrace undetectable PEDs, which I think could. No, I'm just kidding.
That would be wonderful. Let's be fair. Probably every NBA player is already doing that.
Yeah. Al should really be exploring that. Post passing, I think, is something that we could look at through Al, which is it's a non-impactful element to one's game where you can just get your back to the basket in the post there, catch the ball, and then find a cutter. It's not like we're asking you to move and twist and jump and land among feet where you can twist your ankles. I'm saying that as a very, unathletic, inactive 35-year-old man. But his assist percentage is the lowest that it's been since his rookie year. So we know that he's a capable playmaker. So I'd like to see us using Al in that format. Marcus Smart, hard to pick on Marcus Smart, but limit the flare. I feel like we talked about that table setting element of Smart's game. Sometimes kind of like Jalen with those threes that he jacks up that you mentioned earlier, Spoonie. Marcus Smart gets a little too confident and starts to add this sort of razzle-dazzle to his game.
Yes.
Then he'll kick off a little series of turnovers within an otherwise perfect game. If he can do away with that, then it's just going to help him become an even more perfect point guard for this team.
I love that one. I think back to that off the backboard oop to Jalen. He tried that one time. That was just what are you doing?
Yeah, just don't do that.
Yeah. I was going to say set the tone on defense every night because I feel like you can tell in a fourth quarter when Smart is just dragging the defense on his back and destroying the ball every time on a pick and roll. We've seen it often, and it's really hard to do when you're also carrying the load as the primary point guard. But I feel like at times, especially earlier in the year, and again, this is nitpicking because Smart's these last couple are all going to be nitpicks because they're all incredible players. But I feel like at times he's gotten a little lazy fighting through screens, and he does this thing where he dives and falls to try to get the illegal screen call. Just stop, dude. You're the best screen navigator in the league. If someone gets you, they're going to get you, and they'll probably call it. But otherwise, just get through the screen. We know you can do it. You're so good at it. So please just keep setting the tone on defense.
He does seem to be really good at identifying when screeners have their Scal again calls us out all the time when screeners have their feet wider than their shoulders and then kind of flopping on those screens. But yeah, for the most part, like just defend and stop focusing on, the
goofy stuff.
The ref. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Who else we got here? Okay, two very important players. Jaylen Brown. What have you got for JB?
I think I already really said it, and that was on my mind because I was thinking about this segment. Is just like stop with the terrible threes. He doesn't take many of them. Again, this is an incredible nitpick. I'm not even going to talk about the turnovers. Like it's just the playmaking. Like it's just not going to happen in the middle of a season, man. So the one thing that's definitely controllable is 30-foot pull-ups with 12 seconds on the shot clock. Just stop it, please.
Totally.
Yeah.
This, what I've got is probably less controllable than that because I think it's just part of who he is, but the defensive awareness or lack thereof.
I was picking between those two, man. I kid you not. Yeah.
Like in my mind, I have this sort of low light reel of JB being backdoor cut for wide open dunks and layups for the opposition. And that's just doesn't seem to be going away anytime soon. But it is a mindset. It's just like pay attention, right? At all times defensively. And like maybe you could try harder to do that. So I think that's a semi-realistic resolution.
The first thing I learned about defense, obviously, like I was not a great basketball player. I was probably better than you expect for a huge nerd at my height, right? But I was not like good. Is like you need to be in a position where you can see your man and you can see the ball. So you need to like shift your shoulders, shift your feet. Jaylen does not do that. It's like he's guarding the ball when he's on the corner shooter and he's just looking at the ball. And then, yeah, you're right. Backdoor cut, backdoor cut, backdoor cut. So like, just get back to the fundamentals on defense. Ball you man.
Yeah. And at that level, you're a pro, you live and breathe basketball. You have a team of coaches and assistants and trainers around you constantly trying to craft you into the best player possible. The mind boggles as to why that little thing can't be addressed.
I know.
Anyway, nitpicking. Jason Tatum, what do you got, Spoons? This one's going to be hard, I think.
No. This one's very easy, and we all talk about it endlessly. Stop complaining to the refs.
Oh, yeah.
They hate you. They very clearly hate you, Jason. Stop yelling at them and showing them. It's okay to be like, look, man, why wasn't that one called? But being like slapping, clapping, and screaming at them, like that is not useful. Stop.
Mm-hmm. And get back on defense.
Yeah, that same, like one and the same in a lot of ways. Yeah,
absolutely. I put 3-point shooting, and obviously the difficulty of the 3-point attempts that Tatum puts up is, above average compared to, other players within the league. And then free throw shooting as well. There's been a pretty notable dip in his free throw percentage recently. I don't know if that's the wrist, which I think is his guide hand, but, fundamentally sound shooters, the guide hand is still very important. 3-point percentage, I think that needs to go up. It's well below his career average at the moment. I don't know the exact stats. I checked them on Cleaning the Glass before we started recording, and it has dipped lower and lower really as the season has progressed. So if he can turn that around, as he often has done in prior seasons, at around this time, then obviously that opens up his drive game and his passing game as well, and everything sort of falls off of that. So I'd really like to see him improve that. But for the most part, I feel like Jason Tatum is 100% the perfect human specimen and has no faults.
Basketball robot.
Absolutely. All right, well, look, to finish up here, we're going to go with a recent post on Celtics Reddit, throwback, by user C of the East. And the post is titled, "What is your Celtics hot take?" And here are some notable ones. One is, "The only team I want to avoid in the playoffs is the one team we swept a year ago, the Nets. I do still think we're a better team and can prevail, but they're going to give us all that they got in the name of revenge." Two more here. "I'm afraid of Missoula being a Budenholzer type that doesn't make adjustments if things don't work, especially in the postseason." Okay. And then finally, "The Celtics are playing great basketball and the shots they take are good shots. They're just not falling." So those are 3 hot takes from that thread. Spoonie, do you have a hot take for us?
First of all, I agree with the Nets one, and I agree with the last one there that I do think we've been playing really well. But Bud won a ring, and he learned to make adjustments. So, like, if he becomes Bud, it might be a little annoying, but not the end of the world. This is very spicy. I don't know if I don't really believe it, but I'm just going to put it out in the universe. I think we're going to regret trading Aaron Nesmith for Malcolm Brogdon.
Oh, okay. You told me about what your hot take might be. That it was going to be spicy before we started recording. That
Nesmith's
did
been
pop into my head.
playing better than Brogdon has over the last couple weeks. Obviously, small sample size. Not a big deal. Brogdon's clearly a better player right now, but if Nesmith keeps up on this upward trajectory, he's exactly the type of third wing we need, which is what I always said and always hoped for him. And Brogdon and White are pretty redundant. Like, I know when it's in the playoffs and we're against the Warriors, we're going to need Brogdon's ball handling. But man, I just can't help thinking like 3 years, it's going to be like, oh, wish we held on to Nesmith somehow. Maybe not. I'll probably look dumb. And again, not sure I really believe it, but that's my spicy hot take.
I'll give you one. And your take is very interesting. And I hope that it doesn't bear out to be true, because then what my hot take is, maybe it's not a hot take, has no chance. And that is that the Celtics are winning the title this year. And this is the beginning of a Warriors-style dynastic run. Because I think that so many of the little issues that we have, Spoonie, are because of our two best players. Our leaders are like 26 or under. And I think that will sort of self-resolve as they enter their true prime and mature a little bit and round out the leadership like aspect and component of not only their games, but their personalities as well. I think people forget like how young our two best players are. And when it comes to leading a team beyond the finals and into championship glory, like you really do need to be a well-rounded character. You're both on and off the court. And, I think they've got to learn from their mistakes last year. I think that ultimately, as we get into the postseason, the roster has been pretty perfectly populated by Brad Stevens. And I think that they're really, really well poised, despite what we saw yesterday against the Nuggets, to win the title this year. Like, Spoon, if you had to bet your house on who would win the title this year, would you not bet on the Celtics?
No, I definitely would. I think that's a great point. I think Tatum has actually been kind of open about how he's not really a natural vocal leader. And I think Al has had quotes this year where as Ben wipes the sweat from his the summer in Australia from his brow here. Yeah. And I think Al has had some quotes where he said like, hey, Tatum has really started to command the room in a different way this season. I think, it's weird to say, but the finals loss might have been the best thing ever for Jason Tatum's career, because it just kind of showed him like you need to be just a little bit more. And it's not even a little bit more in your skills and in your game. It's about how you manage the locker room and treat your teammates and just be the guy that bears the burden of the losses, unless you're LeBron, who always was hurt or shifted blame because he didn't have enough help when he lost. But don't be that guy. Be Steph Curry, right? Be that leader for the team that they can look to on and off the court. And I think you're right. He and Jalen, I think, was a little bit more of a natural leader in that sense. I think they're both maturing into that very nicely. And I think it bodes very well for our championship odds this year. And would you trade the next 3 years of the Celtics for any other team? Like, I don't think I would. As Memphis is maybe the only team you could think, but I think they're kind of fake. That Green with Envy guys talked about it, and I agreed with what Greg was saying, that basically he doesn't think they're a true championship contender. So I think you take the next 3 years of the Celtics against anybody.
I think if the Pelicans land Wemby,
that's a good point.
That. But for
Pelicans,
now, pre-draft, I'm taking Celtics. And, if you're listening to this for some reason, not being a Celtics fan, you might be like, okay, Celtics podcasters say as a hot take that the Celtics will win the title. That's not very hot takey. I, personally, in my approach to fandom for the team, I'm pretty, and Spoonie, you know this about me, I'm pretty doomsday. I'm pretty anxious.
Yes. Anxious, yes.
To see, I'm quite neurotic in my approach and tend to always worry that, things are going to unravel and go wrong. And despite all that, despite that part of my personality, I do feel very confident about this team's title hopes. So I guess to me, it's a hot take to sort of begin to accept my own internal confidence in the Celtics maybe winning a title. So for me, it feels like a hot take. The other hot take is that Horford, the Jays, Marcus Smart, and Brad Stevens will all make the Hall of Fame.
Oh, I love it. Al, I think, is the question mark. The 2 championships at Florida really help his case. But Smart, he's got to probably bring up a couple more DPOYs or make some all-star teams.
Well, the dynastic portion of my previous hot take needs
Fair.
to be
All
true
right.
for
Yeah.
these. And
Okay.
then
I
it's like,
feel it.
okay,
Yeah.
Brad
Yeah.
Stevens built a dynasty. You know, it was very successful as a
Brad,
college
I
coach,
think.
as an NBA coach, as a team builder, and then Smart as the table setter for that dynasty Celtics team. All feeds into that Hall of Fame prediction.
I have one more.
Please.
We could not win the title this year and still have a successful season.
Okay. Say
Like
more.
if we lose in the Eastern Conference Finals to 7 against the fully healthy Nets or something like that, or if we go up against the Nuggets and lose in 7, which I think we would blow the doors off the Nuggets in the finals, but or we go against the Warriors and Steph is stupid hot for 4 games and you just cannot stop him and he's making 35 footers. It's still a successful season, even if we don't win a ring. And I know I feel like that's a pretty hot take with the fan base right now, because I think people are very much expecting them to win this year, which like even the highest odds have us at like 20% to win the title, right?
Yep.
That's far from a guarantee. In fact, it's far more likely we don't win. So I would put that into the universe.
Well, look, that's going to help to simmer me down and hopefully some listeners as well from the hot take that I threw out there. So very interesting. And go check out that Reddit thread in its entirety, because there's some really interesting thoughts and comments in there. All right, that is going to do it for this one. The Green with Envy guys are going to be back with another pod on this feed on Thursday-ish. Then we'll round out the week with another pod on Friday-ish. Make sure you subscribe to the Celtics blog podcast feed. It's going to be chock full of content every week of 2023 and beyond. Wayne Spooney, who you can find at WSpooney on Twitter. Love your work, mate. Thanks again.
Thanks, man. Hey, real quick, I'm writing something about Jaylen Brown, so look for that in the next couple of days. Yeah, Jamba Juice, the many flavors of Jaylen's mid-range game.
Hell yeah, I look forward to reading that. All right, make sure you keep an eye on Celtics blog and Spooney's Twitter for that one, people. Until next time, go Celtics. Peace.